Okay, to understand stem and leaf plots, I'm going to compare them to a histogram and draw that over here and then explain how helpful a stem and leaf plot can be. Over here I've written a list of numbers. Let's imagine we surveyed all of the students in our Year 7 class and we wrote down their heights in centimetres. So this is just a fictional list of numbers, but we can work with it. Now if you were to plot every single height on here, 151, 152, 153, 154, and then write how many people were that height, the fact that there might be a couple of people the same height as each other would show up. Perhaps some of these would have a little bar that was too high, but most of them would just be ones, wouldn't they? And you'd end up with a graph that looked like this, and it wouldn't really be very helpful for telling us approximately how tall most students in the class are. So what we do when we make a chart with data like this is we tend to group people together into ones that are sort of similar. So an obvious way to do it would be to say, all right, these kids are 150 something, these kids are 160 something, these kids are 170 something, and this student is 180 something. Now that you've got some groups, you can make groups over here and say, all right, this is 150 to 159, 160 to 169, 170 to 179, and 180 to 189. And then you could have here a scale of how many students. So you'd call this number of students, and this would be their height. And we've got 2 students in the 150 something, so that would line up with 2. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 students who are 160 something, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's going to be a really tall column, looks something like that. Only 2 students are 170 something and 1 student's 180 something. So just at a glance, you can look at that chart and say, oh wow, most students are 160 something. And in a single glance, you can tell a lot about what the normal height might be for students in that class. You can also see the range, who's the shortest and the tallest. So it's really helpful turning that data into that data. The problem with this data is that we actually lose something. If all of this is taken away and we just show someone this chart, they've got a really good idea approximately how tall everybody is. But these 10 people who are 160 something, we're not quite sure whether they might have all been, say, 160 centimetres, or maybe they're all 169. We can't tell. So what a stem and leaf plot does is it takes that whole chart and basically turns it on its side. And instead of putting it down this way, instead of actually building a proper chart like our other one and turning it on the side, it just says, let's break the number up into bits. It has a key where it tells you what the bits mean. So if I'm going to break students up into ones that are 150 something, for example, the very first person, it would be 150 something and then a 1. Now this something here, this splits the number 151 into a stem part, a little bit like on a tree, and the leaf part. Now every single one of these numbers has a stem, and I can divide them up like this into a stem part and a leaf part. Now this makes more sense once I actually do it. This is where I'm going to break the numbers up. So I'll write the 150 somethings here, 160 something, 170 something, 180 something, and then I'll write the something over here. Now the something, in other words, the leaf, can only be 1 digit. So when you're breaking your numbers up, you have to make sure that the stem can be as big as you like, but the leaf has to just be 1 digit. And the reason for that is we're going to place these digits now in a nice sequential order, going from smallest to largest. And we're going to try and place them so that they're sort of almost in columns, but we're not actually going to draw columns, we'll just sort of do it by eye. So 151 and 158 means we have 151 and 158. And I write them in like that, and that's 2 separate scores for the 2 children who are 151 and 158. Now for the 160s, I've got 2 kids who are 160 exactly. I've got a 161, a 163, I've got 2 164s, 2 165s, a 166 and a 167. So I put them in order, and this tells me that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 individual scores. 172 and 3 can go in, and our tallest student 182. Now what you can see here is that just at a glance you can actually see the shape of the data without drawing a block around it, although I guess you could. You sort of don't need to. You can see that the most popular thing to be in this class is 160 something. But what we've got here is not just a blank block like our other chart had. We actually have retained all the detail by showing the numbers. So we can see what's the most common, and we can see what every individual person has. So it has that advantage over a histogram.